wiser as an educated advisor. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, The Approach, part 1 in our series on the 5-step process of successful recruiting with Bob Lochard, Chief Marketing Officer of Gordon Marketing. So let's get down to business. Well, welcome to our first segment on recruiting. Now listen, this could be recruiting clients, this could be recruiting your downline, this could be a IMO, FMO, BGA, MGA recruiting other agents. The same philosophy for every target market that I just described is pretty much the same. Would you not agree?
I do.
Okay, so let's talk about it. And by the way, if you've seen Bob's other show that we did a couple weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago, whatever it was, 12-step, well, he got it down to 5. I think there's actually a couple more that you've added, but we're going to do kind of a basic idea so that you can understand what we're going to talk about. And these 5 areas are really critical: the approach, the qualification, the presentation, that's my fave, and the close, and of course, the patented referral. So let's walk into the approach and tell me, how did you come up with this base methodology? Because it seems so basic, but nobody does it.
Well, I'm big on steps. Probably get that from my background, that everything, it's really recognizing what step of the process I'm in. I don't go into recruiting or building relationships, go, hey, which step am I in? But I practice the steps so that it comes natural. The approach is really quite simple. I sum it up with, it's the first contact I make with anybody, whether it's in sales or in recruiting. I love to recruit. And I always say that in recruiting, especially in our line of the business, if you don't understand up front, there's 1/3 coming, 1/3 going, and 1/3 thinking about leaving. So the day you stop recruiting and adding to your downlines, the day you go out of business. And so best practices, we need to know things that I can measure, things that I can follow up with. So that's where this comes from.
Okay, now in one of our other segments in another series, you were talking about, how many contacts, I mean, it's the approach is based on contacts.
Absolutely.
When I read that first, I thought to myself, the law of large numbers. I have to just figure out, I'm going to get this percentage, but based on my how many calls or contacts that I make. So when we're talking about dials and contacts, that sounds so old school to our millennial partners, to our Gen and XY, but really from a boomer point of view, this is how we were brought up.
It's just what we do on a daily basis. And I like to tell people, as we'll get into it, it's my launching point. It's my starting point. Whether you're a large agency, a small agency, an individual, or a group, we have to have somewhere to start, to measure. And now each one of us are different, and we all have different personalities, likes, dislikes, what we do, and how we communicate. But I need a starting point. I need to be able to measure, am I successful? And so, yeah, dials, contacts, how many, it gives me a starting point. It gives me a way to measure myself.
I had the same mentor that said, here's the calls you're going to need to make today. I walked out of that office and was able to land no one. Right. But he said, but you made every one of those calls. I saw your review at the end of the week, saw your call. Just hang in there. The law of large numbers will play on your behalf.
Absolutely.
We're talking about basic ideas, the contact issue, whether it's phone, email blast, whether you're texting. There's so many avenues now, to recruit. And we know our target market. We have to know who we're going after, right?
Absolutely.
Now, you do a lot of downline agency building. When you're telling these people that are willing to put some money on the table and willing to spend the time and treasure, what is their number one issue that you want them to think about when they're taking this approach on contact?
Be diverse. Don't fall in love with one method, because that method may not be available tomorrow. We've had things that impact our industry. Do not call alls. Years ago, you could load everybody into the database and call anybody. Today, you can't do that. So be selective. Know your market, who you're going after, time of the day, place of the country. All of those things are very, very important when you're looking at growing but be diverse. Do an email blast, do a voice blast, do a webcast, do social media, do mail out cards. There's just a host of methods you could use, but don't just fall in love with one.
So you have multiple medium platforms that you can launch your messaging on.
Absolutely.
How tight does that message have to be when you're in the generic side of the recruitment process?
Very. You have to be very distinct. I have to get my message out quickly, and it has to be one that when you see it, that you're immediately have an interest to. I only have a short amount of time to make a good first impression, and I only get one time to make a first good impression. And if I'm doing it by email, voice, you're talking a 10 to 15 second median. So I've got to really sell the sizzle and get it in, get it out fast, and get my message at home. So
when I know you just said to be diverse, but if you had to choose one that you really like, which is Bob's favorite?
The phone.
You love the phone.
The phone. For a lot of reasons. In my role, we have many marketers that we call them, some would call them recruiters, that are making those contacts on behalf of our company. And we want to be able to measure success. If you're that individual, you want to feel some success, and you just stated it. If I'm new to this game, how many calls am I going to have to make before I have that first victory? If we call the victory the end of the game, the end result, which we'll get to, that may not come for a while, and that would leave you feeling very empty. But if I told you I want you to make 100 dials a day, and I want you to have a certain amount of contact actually talking to people, you could probably accomplish that your first week. And then as your supervisor, I can praise you. I can give you, let you know that, hey, listen, because it is the law of numbers, this is all going to come to fruition. You're going to see the results of all your labor.
When you're practicing the law of large numbers and you have a young person coming on staff and you've given them, I'm assuming, a telescript of some sort.
Absolutely. From
a front-end communication. I've noticed that the first maybe 1-2 lines better be great.
It's the opening dialogue. You're going to shut me down. And I like to always say we've all gotten calls by the good telemarketer and the bad one. And even though we didn't buy from either one of them possibly, we listened to one longer than the other because that individual knew exactly what they wanted to say, how they wanted to say it. They knew who their market was, and they reached in and they grabbed me right off the start. And that's so important.
Now, you have a pretty sizable call center.
Yes.
In Indiana, north of Indianapolis, in your office. When I first saw 200 dials a day, I thought to myself, that is really old school, right?
Yep.
But I'm thinking, wow, are people ready to make 200? And they're trying to get 12 to 15 actual people on the line.
Right.
So tell me about that theory.
Well, obviously today we live in a day of technology. 200 dials a day, old school, picking up the phone and dialing for dollars, that's going to be difficult, if not impossible to reach. And in the early day, that's what we did. Today, I can use a host of auto dialers, whether I do it web-based or I can do it technology-based in-house. I can load, and if I want to make 200 dials, the phone dialed 200 numbers is all I'm talking about there. I'm going to have to load a couple thousand names because that's going to be done in 15 minutes. And so those 200 dials are very quickly accomplished. So I had a victory. Now, the key to the dials is the contacts. So how many dials do I have to make to reach my goal of my contacts? It's going to vary. And you hit it on the head. The new person coming in, and by the way, new doesn't mean new to the industry. It could be old fish trying to learn something new. But new, it's that opening dialogue. What did I get out during that first 5 to 10 seconds? Because if I'm dynamic, I may not have to get my 200 dials to get my 12 or 15 contacts. If I'm not dynamic, I may need 1,000 dials. But again, I'm going to use technology, so time is of no essence here. I can get this done in very little bit of time.
Okay, and you've seen success on this because
absolutely.
You guys are not only a major platform for product distribution, but you're recruiting new agencies, not just the agent. You're actually getting agencies to play.
Absolutely.
And you had to make somebody had to make first contact.
We have 30-some thousand agents in our database, and we recruit 300, 400, 500 a week all the time, replacing 1/3 coming, 1/3 going. New people coming in, making out-down calls, and so every week our marketers have victories by reaching new people.
And they appreciate the technology because it really gets them to the people they need to talk to.
Without the technology, Bob wouldn't be very liked if I told him they have to do 200 dials.
Well, he'd probably have a revolt.
Most likely.
Okay. Well, listen, don't forget to watch our next segment on the qualification, part 2 in our series on the 5-step process of successful recruiting. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any ideas on the show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or compliance officer. And if you want some of Bob's ideas, just don't forget, you can call him. We'll have the 800 number down there. You'll be able to see some of the things that he does. And remember, also subscribe to my consumer show, Steve Savant's Money, the Name of the Game. Daily content that you can post on your website, in your social media accounts, and use it for your database marketing. I'm Steve Savant. Thanks for watching.